Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this edition of the Sin Bin podcast. As always, I'm Joe Trentley, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He's Mitch Bannon, Toronto, Ontario. And you may see a third face here on the screen. We'll introduce him here in a moment, but we got a lot to talk about here with you guys on our Super Bowl special edition of the Sin Bin. And as I just mentioned, that is Danny Beeck, also a Harrisburg, Pennsylvania native, my good friend. He is now a video producer for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of the teams in Super Bowl 55, as we are kicking off the middle of this Super Bowl weekend. So, Danny, thanks for joining us here on the show. Great to have you. The first thing I just want to touch on and get to is if you want to just let everybody know what you do. You know, you're a video producer, what that entails, what every day is like for you, and how the journey down in Florida has been.
Yeah, so I think, first off, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Good to connect with you guys again, with Joe, specifically with that Cal connection as well. But yeah, so I mean, I think everybody knows right now with the world of COVID, every day is different. You know, working from home every day, something can come down the line and just have to adapt and change to it. But mostly my job revolves around editing and shooting for social media and also our website as well, Buccaneers.com. So whether that's being on the field now obviously with COVID, it's a little bit different shooting at a game. It's more they call it the operational zone. So it's basically the first row of the stands. They have that roped off, I think, to the 8th row. So we have a little bit more space from, separation from the fans to us. So that's shooting at games. Last week I was just on the field at Lambeau, which was a bucket list item for me. So that was crazy. And then obviously everything leading up to now with the Super Bowl, it's been a whirlwind, and it's only going to get better as the week or the game gets closer.
Cool. I gotta ask, did you try to put down the camera at some point and make the Lambeau leap?
I did. So actually, at the end of the game, we had a little bit of time after the game was over. We didn't fly with the team, so we weren't in the bubble. So we flew commercial, so our flight wasn't until the next day. So we kind of stuck around, took some pictures. It was at night, so it was the lights were nobody in the stadium. So we ran out through the away tunnel. So they have a really narrow tunnel, and I can share the picture with you guys as well. A very narrow tunnel for the away team that you have to walk out. It's carpeted, green carpets, like a cream walls. It's like a legendary, the pictures and all that stuff. It's crazy. So we ran out through there, and then we did the Lambeau leap, and it was a little bit easier for me. I didn't have gear on, so it was a little bit, I could just get those hops, my white boy hops up there. But it was cool though. That was definitely a highlight of the night for sure.
You kind of just stole like one of my entire questions. I was going to ask about the entire Lambeau experience because as any football fan of the NFL, Lambeau is the mecca of the NFL. And every football fan wants to make a trip there. So I was just going to ask, about that trip, especially, the frozen tundra in Aaron Rodgers and that offense in January, like against Aaron Rodgers against Tom Brady in January at Lambeau for a trip to the Super Bowl on the line. Like what?
Yeah, it was nuts. I mean, you said it best, the frozen tundra. When we pulled up to the stadium, it was snowy. That was like the pinnacle of or the epitome of Lambeau Field is, the frozen tundra, the snow coming down. You can see the snow and the lights coming through. All those other shots that you see, NFL films, you grow up and you see all these different shots and you're seeing those with your eyes. You're able to take those in, and if only my eyes were cameras, I would get some crazy shots. But yeah, so it was sweet. I mean, walking up to the stadium, like I said, the snow coming down, we go into the stadium. And I guess it's like a tradition with fans at Lambeau that I think a few hours before the game, they let a few thousand people in if it's snowing, and they shovel the stadium out, which is the coolest thing ever. Yeah, it was sweet. So that was sweet. That was really cool. And then I'm trying to think of some other memorable stuff that happened. Obviously, like pregame, getting those shots of Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, the legendary matchup. Yeah, I mean, it was the whole thing. I got goosebumps when I looked up and saw Bart Starr and Reggie White and Brett Favre in the rap, like the Ring of Honor. Like that stuff is the coolest thing to me, that I was walking on the same field as them. That's what I think it was my biggest takeaway, just being in hallowed grounds. I grew up a Brett Favre fan. My dad went to tried to take me to a bunch of different stadiums, and, Lambeau Field was on my bucket list, like I said. And, when I told my dad that I was traveling, he was like, his jaw dropped. He was just as excited as I was. But the whole experience in general, that was actually the first away game that I've ever traveled to. So I've never traveled to any of the games. Last year I was an intern, and then I got full time a little bit later on. But there was already a spot. Somebody was already traveling with the team, so I just got the lucky straw, I guess you could say. I didn't have to travel and go through all those headaches. But yeah, the first game ever traveled to for an NFL game was the NFC Championship game. So I mean, it doesn't get much sweeter than that, in my opinion.
For sure not. You were kind of touching on the legends there, and you guys have a legend in Tom Brady on your team. And you mentioned you were an intern last year, so you kind of get the before and after. What was it like for you, and how did kind of the marketing department and your job kind of change when you're like, oh wow, we got Tom Brady now?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the best part about the Bucs is just the fact that, we always, I guess it's just the way that it is in the NFL too. You just got like level head, with everything. So when we got Tom Brady, obviously it was that influx of, just so many more eyes, are drawn to what we do. But we try to keep a level where no matter what happens, if it's, I don't know, Joe Schmo on the street, we sign him, sweet. We're going to pump him up like he's like Tom Brady. We're going to get that news out in a way that shines a positive light on everybody that's on our team, no matter who it is. So obviously getting Tom Brady, a lot comes with that, a lot more responsibility. There's approval processes that work with that hasn't worked in the past. So it's just, I think it's more recognition for us, what we do, because on a daily basis, we put out, on a weekly basis, we put out 5 or 6 features. Maybe sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, but those are ramped up because, it's Tom Brady. He has so many stories, how many years he's been in the league. He has all of these golden nuggets that we just want to pick his brain, and the fans want to as well. Like I was mentioning before, just those helmets off conversations that fans are able to talk to a player, metaphorically talk, ask questions, all those different things. That's what we want to give the fans the ability to do. And I think that now with Tom Brady on our team, Rob Gronkowski, Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown, all these other eyes that are drawn to us, we're able to do that in a more effective, and it just changes our approach to how we're doing that and how we're telling those stories.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of just stole yet another point I was going to bring up, at least part of it. So those 4 players in general, you look at this team on paper now, and it's like, wow, easily the most eye-opening team in the league, at least especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at this team preseason, it's like, okay, well, the Bucs, the Saints are really the only competition in the South. In the NFC, who else? You got the Packers, and the Bucs didn't win the division. Saints beat them twice, and postseason comes around. You did it the hard way. You went through the 2 best teams in the NFC on the road, Superdome, beat the Saints, and went up to Lambeau, as we just mentioned, and beat the Packers. What was the mindset different with this team, or was it always just strictly business? We're going to get our jobs done regardless of who we play, where we play. Postseason, Tom Brady's a whole different animal, and him as a leader with a new team is a whole different animal. But was there ever really any mindset change, or did it just, stay the course, and we're going to go out and we're going to win the football games regardless of where they play, where they are played, or who they are played against?
Yeah, so I think one of the best parts, the best aspects about Tom Brady is just his experience in the playoffs. I've heard many conversations with players just saying, they haven't been here before. You look at a Levante David or a Mike Evans, those guys are one of the best, top whatever in the league in their own positions. They're able to do this at a high level, but when the playoffs comes around, everybody else's level is raised as well. So Tom Brady's experience in these situations allows him to give that knowledge and pass that knowledge off to some of these guys that don't have that experience. Obviously I mentioned those 4 acquisitions on the offensive side, but the defense is just as lights out, arguably even more lights out than the offense in some situations in some games. Devin White turned on a switch. Levante David turned on a switch. Sean Murphy-Bunting turned on a switch. He, one of the first players in NFL history with 3 consecutive games with a playoff interception, other than Ed Reed, to gain that standing in the record books. It just shows how consistent this defense is and how young this team is even. Our defense, I think our cornerbacks, the oldest player on the team is 24 or 25, somewhere around there. They're young, but they're battle tested. They've proven themselves. A few of those guys, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Central Michigan, Mike Edwards, Kentucky, Auburn, all these guys that obviously other than Auburn, but SEC schools, I don't know, Central Michigan, like these guys know how to carry themselves in situations in the playoffs as well. They've proven themselves. And on the offensive side, I think it speaks for itself, with Gronk, with Cam Brate's turned it on as well. Mike Evans. I mean, we can talk about, Gronk, and we can talk about Tom Brady, and we can talk about all these people, but like Mike Evans, if you want to talk about Mr. Consistent, 7 consecutive years of 1,000+ receiving yards, that is bonkers. That is insane. And he just does it with ease, relative ease. He made some crazy plays this year. I think he had his career high in touchdown receptions this year. He's just a beast. And even his leadership on offense, he can pass that off to a Tyler Johnson. He can pass it off to a Scotty Miller who's turned it on as well. There's so many people, and I feel like I'm just going to say, oh, this person's turning on, this person's turning on. But like this team is working together, is utilizing the experience from everybody else around them, whether it's a lack of experience or if it's all the experience in the world. They're feeding off of each other, and that's why the success is being carried out onto the field. There's just leadership in place, even the coaching staff as well, with Bruce Arians, Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is a mastermind on defense. How he draws up some of these schemes blows my mind. That's why he's in the spot that he is. But yeah, I think it's just business as usual. I think that's to round back to the question. I think it's just business as usual. It's just, like I said, keeping that level head on our front, but also on the field, just keeping that level head. Can't get too high on the highs and can't get too lows on the low. We had, I want to say 3 consecutive losses, and then we went on a streak of 7. And we haven't looked back since. And I think that's the best way to do it. You just got to, keep moving forward.
And you list off, like, we could literally go down the entire roster. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that these two teams are the teams that are in the Super Bowl. I'm sure if they weren't 1 and 2 in terms of the odds at the beginning of the year, they were both top 5. And so if I asked you in a week, the favorite thing you were working on might be cutting together the parade video, but what do you think's like the favorite thing you've worked on the project this year, in like a specific video or like a bigger project?
Yeah, I think that the role that I'm stepping into, so my role has been all over the place this year with the changing protocols at the facility and all these different things. So I was there. They have a tiered system before with the NFL. So it was tier 1, a lot of players and coaches. Tier 2 was overflow for those players and coaches and anybody that was working close with the team. And on our staff, I was lucky enough to get one of those tier 2 positions with my boss as well. So being close to the team, I was getting tested every single day. I was, at the facility. I wasn't working from home. I had those speeds. I know we were talking about before. I had those speeds of, working at the facility and, just being close to the team, I think was my biggest takeaway from this season. I was an athlete at one point, not a good athlete, but, I played sports and I played all those different things. Now I'm not so much an athlete. So being close to the team and being able to capture their athletic achievements and, put them on, showcase them, I think is the coolest part for me. I shot just something random, but I shot Scotty Miller. He was catching punts at practice and he caught 7. And in one, like he had them all in his hands. And it was him and Jaden Mickens and they both caught 7. And that was just an after practice thing. Walking out, they were just, carrying on, being all loud. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to take my camera out and shoot this. And I missed Jaden Mickens, but I caught Scotty Miller's doing it. And that was the coolest thing ever. And it got reposted just recently on Checkdown and got picked up by ESPN, I believe, when it was originally posted, a few different places. But just being able to showcase their athletic, I don't know, it sounds corny, but like their athletic achievements on the field, practice field, game field, but that doesn't matter. But just being close to the team, I think as well. I think everything is rewarding when you're winning, and it's you get more eyes obviously this year. So, have to be on your P's and Q's and just make sure everything is crisp and it's clean. It puts more responsibility on us as an editor. So I think that that's something that I can carry on as well.
You kind of just, you touched on it just briefly about, kind of after practice stuff, the stuff that makes them human, what people just think of football players. My next question was going to be something along those lines, like one Bucs player that, us as fans, we don't obviously get the access that you do, but one Bucs player that makes your job easier and is like low key, like the coolest player that people might not think, like they see him on the field and it's like, oh, like, well, that guy has an attitude or he just plays with fire or something like that. But low key, behind the scenes, he's like the most down to earth, chill guy that makes your job easier and is like willing to do interviews whenever and just fun to be around.
Yeah. So, I mean, this season is a little bit different, obviously with everything. And last season, I really wasn't in the interview rooms and wasn't doing all those different things. But somebody that I think is most, I'm not going to say relatable because he's a freak at what he does and, a freak athlete at what he does. But Mike Evans, I think is such a cool, relatable guy. Family man. He's big into video games, fashion, shoes, all those different things that I can relate to and, I can connect with. A lot of the guys on the team are, and, Donovan Smith as well. He's big into shoes and fashion and style as well. And, just talking to them about, obviously they have significantly more money than I do. So they're able to make these bigger purchases and, wear these different brands and different styles and all those different things. But that's what I connect with. That's what I kind of grab onto. And so if I can have a conversation with Mike Evans when he's getting ready for an interview and say, oh, like, when was your last win in Warzone? And he just goes on like, oh, I was playing with my guys last night from Galveston. Like, this is what I did. This is how many kills I got. This is how many wins I got. Just having those, breaking the ice with a conversation like that, that's the type of situation where I can pick up and be like, that guy's kind of cool. And I mean, he's a baller on the field. So, I mean, that just makes it even better. A fun guy to root on, or root for. But yeah, that's what I connect with. I connect with guys with random things. I follow them on social media. That's important as well. Just that you have that other tie so you can see what they do in their off time, whether it's, like I said, Mike Evans with his family, showing pictures of the family, or, having a cookout, doing all those other things that show them as a person, show them as a human being, because we all marvel at their achievements on the field. But they're humans as well. And they play Warzone just like we do.
I'm not sure, like, so you mentioned you only traveled to the one away game, and I think there were fans in Lambeau, right? Just a few.
Yep.
So how has your job kind of changed? I don't know, when you're thinking about getting audio, you always watch those videos and kind of like the fan reactions on the audio are kind of some of the best part. Like, they cut from the music to the crowd exploding. How has that no fans or limited fans kind of changed how you think about shooting stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's for Lambeau specifically. I think there were 9,000 fans. It sounded like 25 to 30,000 fans.
Wow.
It was loud. For us, I think that what we have to do is more so just focus on shooting the action. The audio this year is a little bit different. I know for people watching at home, and for me as well, if it's an away game, I'm watching as well. But the broadcast kind of like ramps up some like fake noise. And like it just sounds weird. So I think that the most unique aspect of this year is the fact that there's either no fans or limited fans at every game. So if we just decline to even recognize it or even show it, we're not doing our job as creators, as creatives, I guess you can say. We're not doing our job. We have to document that in the most raw form. And I think that that's the coolest part about it, because fans don't expect there to be noise. If they're watching from home, they don't expect that. So we're not going to show it. We're not going to like pump in fake noise. And I get that the broadcast does that to keep the energy up and doing all those other things. But for our front, we're just focused on the action that's going on the field. If it's completely silent, then maybe that's the first time a shot has ever been shot like that. There's been fans at every other game, and in history, there's always been fans present. And if we're able to document, a touchdown pass and then there's no sound, that's unique, that's different, and that's new to a fan that has been so used to hearing, the roar of the crowd or, boos after a penalty, different things like that. That's this type of stuff that doesn't happen right now. So just as it's weird for the players on the field, it's going to be weird for the fans as well. And I think it's our job to document it.
I have two things I want to touch on, and then I don't know if Mitch has anything else. But the first thing, we mentioned him earlier, and I've mentioned him in previous shows, and Mitch can attest to this. I think anytime that we've talked about the Bucs, I've mentioned watching him on TV is one thing, but I wanted to know in person and, being around the facility. Devin White, I think, has been the most – I think he's been the most impressive player on that team that I've watched all year. You mentioned Mike Evans. You can mention Tom Brady. You can mention whoever. But I think Devin White has been the most impressive. Every time I see a defensive snap, he's either around the football, making a tackle, getting a half tackle, fumble recovery, pick. Doesn't matter. He's everywhere. What is it like, being around him and seeing in real time how he works?
Yeah, we were talking about freak athletes before. He's a freak athlete. He's just a ball of muscle. I don't know, that sounds weird, and I regret saying that, but he's just a ball of muscle. And a lot of his abilities and skills were honed at LSU, and it's just playing out on the field now. He always references his mentor and the person that he looks forward to for advice or anything like that. It was Levante David. And, I think that's a perfect mentor for him, just because of the fact that Levante has always been about, keeping your head down and just grinding, just working. He doesn't need the recognition, although he deserves the recognition. And I think that this year of any, he is deserving of it. But when you have a guy right next to you like Devin White, that power duo on the inside is impressive. And the defense that we draw up, it just allows Devin to be Devin. And there's been multiple times during the year, whether we pick him up on a mic'd up or, NFL Films gets him on a sound camera or anything like that. But he goes over to Todd Bowles and he's just like, let me loose. Like, let me just run wild. And he makes those plays. He makes those big hits. He makes the fumble, strip fumbles. He makes the fumble recoveries, makes the interceptions. He does that because he's a man of the game. He studies the game, but he also learns from Levante David. He learns from all of these other guys that have that experience. And I think that, we were talking about before with the playoff experience, but it's just as valuable in season to know what to do in a certain situation. If Levante David has seen how Drew Brees drops back, obviously Devin White can study that, but Levante David has played it at game speed. He knows what he does in certain situations. He can give that knowledge to Devin, and then Devin can go crazy and do what Devin does. I would definitely agree with you that I think that Devin White is one of the most impressive guys on the Bucs right now. He's certainly proved it in the stat department, but a leader as well. In the locker room, he came in last year as a rookie, and now he's a captain. So that just shows what he's able to do in the huddle. That shows what he's able to do in the locker room and on the practice field in general. I think he's one of those voices that gets the players riled up. He's always in the huddle for pregame. He gives the pregame speech, the rah-rah speech that everybody likes to hear. He gives those. He gets on you if we have somebody else mic'd up and a cornerback doesn't make a play or safety misses a tackle, something like that. He comes over and he's like, "Hey, we expect more of you." He keeps everybody else accountable, but he expects everybody else to do that to him. So I think that's extremely valuable as well.
This will be my last question. Then I think Joe mentioned he's got one more, so we
Yep.
can finish this off. I'm curious what your Super Bowl Sunday is going to look like. Are you going to be like on call if they win? Are you going to have to like sit down and like punch out a bunch of Super Bowl championship videos or what?
Yeah, so actually I'm going to be on the field, which is nuts.
Oh,
so I will be on the field. Hopefully the rain stays away. That would be nice because I think they're calling for a little bit of rain. But I'll be doing two people's jobs because of the fact that we're not able to have so many people out on the field. So I'll be doing social media with my cell phone, believe it or not. So I'll have my phone in one hand and my big camera in the other hand. I'll be shooting highlights, capturing, like I was saying before, just documenting the atmosphere, documenting the game. There's going to be the most fans that we've had all season. So it's going to feel like a real game. So we're going to be able to get those roars of the crowd. And whether it's real fans or those cardboard cutouts, there's going to be a ton of people in attendance. So it's going to be really cool. It's going to be very fun. It's it's a childhood dream come true. I just wanted to go to a Super Bowl, and I went to the Super Bowl last year in Miami. I'm very lucky to go to that, and I thought that was the pinnacle of my sports accomplishments. And then I looked down on the field last year, and I was like, hey, I want to be on the field shooting the game next year. And I didn't think it was going to be in this capacity, but here we are.
Maybe the Super Bowl next year in the coming years will be in Jacksonville, and you can go 3 for 3 in the state of Florida. And
hey, I'm good with that. Just like Andy Reid. I think Andy Reid, all of his Super Bowl appearances are in the state of Florida.
Mm-hmm. So my last thing that I want to touch on here, I know if you can't, that's fine. I was going to get a game prediction, but if not, the alternate would be one advantage that you think the Bucs have going into this game, and then one hill to climb. I that could be a pun, actually.
Yes.
For that. But anything, one advantage you see the Bucs having over the Chiefs, and then I don't want to say a disadvantage, but one hill that they're going to have to climb in order to win Super Bowl 55.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm a Bucs employee, so hey, let's go Bucs. You know what I mean? It's I'm going to be rooting for them, no question. Yeah, exactly. But I think that the advantage, obviously, is sleeping in their own beds. I mean, I don't think that the Chiefs have a disadvantage because they have to travel because they're coming a day before. They're sleeping in their beds all week. They're doing Zoom calls. Open media night, all those different things were done at their own facility, at their own homes, if they're doing it there. So there's really no advantage with the Bucs with having a home game. There's a lot that goes into it in terms of making it equal on both sides because it's always been a neutral site. It's one of those things where the Bucs are just lucky that it's the NFC's turn to host, so they get to have their own locker room, they get to have their own entry, coming into the stadium, doing all those other things. It's familiar to them. So yeah, I think that if I had to pick one advantage that the Bucs have, it's playing in their own stadium, being able to wake up, make that same drive that they've had all season, and they get to do it on a Super Bowl Sunday, which is nuts. The hill to climb, I think, is just silencing. I mean, Tyreek Hill. Silencing. I know you said it was a pun, and I'm falling right into the trap. Silencing Tyreek Hill, and Kelsey as well. But I think that what we did well last game that we played, the Chiefs, is bouncing back. I think that now that this week, and I'm sure that the players can echo it as well. It's starting fast, so we don't have to come back. Getting those starts, starting quick, and I think that we have since that game, since the Chiefs game. I think we have started fast. You can reference the Lions game. You can reference, a bunch of different games that the Bucs started fast. And I think that that's what they're going to have to do this game, just because of the fact that we want to keep the Bucs want to keep the Chiefs off the field because that offense is potent, it's proven, and it's dangerous. So that's one thing that the Bucs got to do.
All right. Well, you guys heard it here first from an inside Bucs employee, Danny Beeck. Thanks so much for joining us on the show here. You enjoy Super Bowl 55 in sunny Florida while Mitch and I watch it up here in the Northeast tundra.
I'll take the cold. I hope it.
I'll switch with you. If you're going to give me your press pass, I'll be right there.
Positions with you.
I think it was yesterday. It was 46 degrees at night, so I mean we're getting a little bit of chill, but for down here,
it was like 15 degrees here.
Yeah, at home here we're sitting with a foot of snow. We had
I would take that. Like,
oh
wow.
All right, I'm catching the next flight down to Tampa, and I'll switch with you.
People are wearing snowsuits outside right now. It's like 46, 50, and people are going all crazy. It is what it is, I guess. I don't know.
All righty. Well, sir, thank you for joining us. Good luck to your Bucs here in Super Bowl 55. Hope it's another memorable one for you.
No question. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Hope you guys enjoyed Danny. Great guy. Does a lot of great work, posts a lot of great content for the Bucs. Go check it out. Hopefully he gets something that blows up during the Super Bowl. But good luck to you, Danny, and the Bucs in the Super Bowl. But now we're moving on in the show here. Mitch and I are going to get into a fun segment that we came up with here about the bets for Super Bowl 55. We each wrote down some locks that we think are going to happen. Mitch is going to get to some of his later, but we're going to start with the basics here, Mitch. The Chiefs open as a 3-point favorite here. The spread is -3 for the Chiefs, and they are the money line favorites as well. -172 for the Chiefs. Do you see any surprise there or no?
No, I think that's about right. The one thing I'm curious of is it's kind of generally accepted in football that like a home field advantage gets you 3 points. And so does this mean that the Chiefs are near a touchdown favorites, or is that kind of thrown out the window in a COVID year? And you heard Danny say in the first part of this episode that they're trying as hard as they can to make it a neutral site. So I wonder what they're factoring that into. But no, I don't think it's a surprising line.
I think that's very interesting too. One of the most interesting points that he brought up, because you said it's hard because the Bucs are hosting this Super Bowl, and it just so happens that they made it to this Super Bowl. But sunny Florida, either there or Miami. Jacksonville is iffy, but you look at those two places, and they're always bound to be eligible to host, depending on whether it's because one's an NFC team, one's an AFC team. So, and a lot of people like to go to the Super Bowl. You saw what happened when it was at MetLife with the Broncos and the Seahawks. It was a complete disaster. Yeah. February football in New York City. So, they're always bound to host, but that's really interesting because you're the opposing team. It's the NFL. They're professionals, so it's not like it's college and you're going into Beaver Stadium or the Big House or something like that to play for the championship. It's different. They're professionals, and especially with really hardly any fans this year, they're used to it. But there's got to be something about it as the home team. You're like, as Danny mentioned, sleeping in your own beds, not having to travel, coming out of your own tunnel, using your own locker room, all those things have to factor into it. And he said that's the advantage that he thinks that the Bucs have going into this. But staying with the bets here, the over-under comes in at 56.5, Mitch. Are you hammering that, or are you hammering the over or the under?
I think if I have to choose one, I'm going to choose the under, just because that's a gigantic total. And you look at what Brady did last week, and I don't think the Chiefs are going to let you off the mat as much if you throw a couple picks. I think they're going to throw the ball, obviously, but if they get up, they've proven they can run the ball, and they can run the ball well. And so I think they're going to play their game, run a lot of play action, and run once they get a lead. And I think that could chew clock. But the one thing, the caveat I do have is, despite me thinking that the under is probably the better bet here, I think there's a chance that this beats the 1995 record as the highest scoring Super Bowl. I know that might seem like a bit counterintuitive, but I think it was a 49-26. It was the 49ers Chargers Super Bowl. So that's 75 points. 56 isn't that far off of 75. You get a couple late touchdowns, a big back and forth battle. I think this could be the highest scoring Super Bowl ever.
Yeah, I think this game goes one of two ways as far as the over and under are concerned. It's either, as you mentioned, one of the highest scoring Super Bowls in NFL history because both offenses can score virtually whenever they want, or it's going to be a 17-10 game where the Bucs just completely shut down Pat Mahomes in that offense, and the Chiefs completely shut down Tom Brady in that offense. And it comes down to, and then at that point, it could come down to a defensive turnover, maybe a pick six or a fumble recovery for 6, or special teams, punt return for a touchdown or something like that. So I think it's either that. I don't think, we really see this game going to be like a 30-27, kind of like high scoring, close game. I think it goes one of two ways. I think it's either like through the roof, or I think it's, below the floor. I think, as I mentioned, like 2 scores that I gave an example of, but I think it either clips the over or stays way under. But I'm always an overs guy. So like, I want to take the over, even if it's 56.5, just because I know the offenses can score whenever they want to.
And it's way more fun to cheer for points than cheer for
exactly.
3 outs.
Exactly. I mean, like, imagine taking the under and like rooting for a team to not score.
Yeah,
it's like Big Ten football. Where it's like a 10-6 game, and you're like, yes, 16 points, that's it. but I got the under. Like, no, we want to see points on the board. It's an offensive game. But now we're going to get to Joe's locks. So, Mitch, I'll read mine off, and then I'll let you, like, touch on every one and say, like,
Sure.
if you think that's, like, you know, a good bet or not. So, starting off with the game, easy one. You take tails on the coin toss, 100%.
That was first one on my list.
Tails never fails every single time. The odds are actually the same for both because it's a 50-50 shot. I think it's like minus like 120 or something like that, close to it. But you always take tails. Tails never fails. Easy money. The one bet that has hit the over for me every single time I've taken it this year.
Writing this one down.
Tyreek Hill over receiving yards. I know it's
Tyreek Hill over receiving yards?
Yes.
Okay.
Tie this game. It is for the Super Bowl. It's 94.5. But listen. But in the regular season, they would throw him in there. His over would be in the 70s. So it's one pass. And he gets 8 receptions a game, arguably. Like, I don't know how you don't. And his receptions have to be, you know, almost all of them, if they're not the little quick dumps, they have to all be at least 10 yards or over. So money every time. Tyreek Hill over receiving yards. I don't care if it's 94.5. It's the Super Bowl. Andy Reid's going to throw everything that he has at the Bucs defense. And, you know, Travis Kelce's going to get his receptions and his touches as well. The game plan is going to be stop him and Tyreek. Hard to do. You can plan for the cheetah all you want, but in the end, he's probably still going to burn you. So Tyreek Hill over, it's minus 110, 94.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, the only thing I'm worried about that is I agree. I think their entire game plan is going to be stopping Kelce and stopping Hill. And there's a chance that at halftime, one of them is burning them. Tyreek Hill's got 75 yards. And then so they start doubling him. Okay, we can't stop them both. We're just going to stop one. And then that's the only way I see you getting burned there. But I think they both had over 100 receptions, or 100 receptions. It felt like 100 receptions, 100 receiving yards last game. So I guess if you can stop one of them or both of them, someone would have done it by now.
Yep. And then another one too. It basically goes hand in hand. I saw a prop: any wide receiver or tight end for either team have 100 plus receiving yards.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Minus 370.
Those are pretty hefty odds, but I think like it's almost the only circumstance that doesn't happen is if we have that 17-10 scenario you talked about.
And they throw the ball around and share the wealth, you know, and whatnot. 2-point conversion attempt. Not a successful one, just that there's any 2-point conversion attempt in the game. I think there's going to be one. Those odds are at minus 135.
Oh, I like that a lot. That's good value.
Yes. And then I have 2 more, but one of them ends up as the game prediction, so I'll save that for the end. But Tom Brady over in passing yards. It's low this game for Tom Brady. 296.5.
Wow. Yeah.
Minus 110.
The only issue I have with that is the run game for the Bucs is getting healthy. And Bruce Arians likes to do weird stuff. So I don't know what their game plan is going to be, but yeah, that's a low enough. If that number starts with a 2, I feel like you kind of have to hit it.
But also keeping up with the Chiefs in points. You can't run the football forever.
Yeah, true.
Unless you're John Gruden. You can't run the football forever because he will run the football if he's down by 30 in a Super Bowl. Those are my locks. Do you want to get to yours now, or do you want to wait until later, until the end?
Yeah, I think my locks were, I like the under a lot. I'm not going to necessarily consider it a lock, but I like all of the rushing props. I don't know why, but it's the quarterback rushing props are all, I think Mahomes is in the double digits and Brady's is in the single digits. And I like Leonard Fournette. I like Damian Williams a lot. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has kind of been injured and disappeared. So I like the Williams rushing props. I know I'm betting the rushing props in a passing Super Bowl is probably the dumbest thing I could possibly do, but I do. Those are my locks. Just take a good look at the rushing props.
Interesting.
And then, so I don't know if you want to do this now, but I do have a list of lengthy kind of fun prop bets. You hit on one of them with the coin toss. Maybe unless you have something you want to do first, I can toss those out at you and you can rapid fire lightning round.
Yeah. If you want to do that now, or if you wanted to wait, I'm good.
We'll do it now. We can talk about ones afterwards, but this is
Okay.
they're all kind of fun. I just want to get your thoughts. First player to score.
You're gonna be surprised. All right. Can I give like two options? Because I'm either gonna say Pat Mahomes on a rushing touchdown,
Like that. I think that's what happened last week.
or they're gonna be close in the red zone inside the 5 and do one of those little shuffle screen passes to Kelsey inside and he scores.
Yeah, I like that too.
They do that when they're inside the 5. You can expect it. If it's a first and goal, you can expect it. At least one out of the 3 plays, you can expect it.
I think the only other one I would like about that is I think Scotty Miller. He's way down on the odds. I don't know the specific odds, but I think if he's scoring, it's going to be like a 40-yard pass and he burns someone and Brady just finds him. But I think he'd be an interesting odds on that too.
I was going to say if we go Bucs, I might throw in Cameron Brate. Dark horse there. He scored last week, I think, against the Packers.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna go. He's been great for them this year too. So I'd go Cameron Brate. It would definitely be a Brady throwing touchdown. It won't be a rushing touchdown. Those are I know I gave 3 there, but
Lightning round. Talk about it for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one. First team to call timeout.
Chiefs.
Yeah, I agree. I think Andy Reid's not notorious for some interesting clock management, so I think you got to go with the narrative and just hammer the Chiefs on that.
I also think that Brady's been here now 10 times, so he knows how to manage the game better than anybody else.
He's come back from down 25, so I don't know if they're gonna need to call an early timeout.
Exactly.
Next one, Gatorade color for the winning team that gets poured over the coach.
I want to go orange.
I like that too. I like that a lot. Red is a heavy favorite for naturally, but I think orange is a good value play.
Yeah, I'm going to go orange.
Okay, so we got 2 left.
Okay.
They are the quarterbacks rushing over-unders. Start with Mahomes.
Okay.
He's battled some turf toe in the last couple of weeks. I still think he scrambled for 7 or 8 yards in the conference championship. 18.5 is the total.
See, I was always one during the regular season. I would always hammer if I saw the Mahomes, rushing over under. I would always usually take the over. I'm still going to go over. I'm going to go over. I know it's a bit of a stretch, but as I said, if it's the Chiefs, I think he or Kelsey get the first touchdown. But if he gets it, it could be a rushing touchdown. It's the Super Bowl. Anything could happen. You got to throw everything at the opponent that you have because this is the last game of the season. I'm going to take the over. I think, especially with this Bucs defense, he's not just going to be able to sit back there and throw to Kelsey and Hill and whoever else he wants to on a dime. He's going to have to create plays himself, and I think that entails some rushing yards. And for Pat Mahomes, 18.5, he can get on one play.
Yeah, I think if he's rushing twice, he's probably hitting that. If he's rushing 3 times, he's definitely hitting that.
Yep. I'm taking the over on that one.
So the other one is a pretty hilarious line. Do you want to take a guess at what Tom Brady's over-under is?
2.5.
It is 0.5.
5. All right, over.
Betting.
Over.
That's what I thought. Over. So you got it. You got it.
If they're on the goal line, the QB
imagine a 4th and inches QB sneak, and they're measuring. Is that a half a yard? Like, does that count?
I'm telling you, over 100%. They're gonna get on the goal line at some point, and it's one of those things like the Brady sneak is coming. It's coming, but you can't stop it. It's like the fullback dive on Madden. It's coming, but you can't stop it.
Yeah.
Over.
All right, that's all I got. Those are some fun ones.
I like.
Joe was pretty adamant about the last one, so if you're gonna pick any, I'd say you pick the Tom Brady over 0.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, I like those a lot. I really like the Gatorade color one. That was
it's fun.
That was a bit of a twist that you threw me, but so that was our betting segment here. And we're going to move on now. Again, pretty much anything that we talk about here include bets.
You can bet on literally anything in the Super Bowl. Start time, length of the anthem, length of the halftime show. If we're talking about it here, you can probably bet on it.
The props for this game are unbelievable. I've been on FanDuel now since September, maybe. I think September, and I've never seen anything like this. Like, obviously, this is my first Super Bowl on FanDuel, but I've never seen props or the extent of the creativity that they go into. I understand it's the biggest sporting event of the year every year, but holy mackerel, like this is insane. Some of the stuff I see on there, I'm like, how do you come up with this? Like, what? It's just so fun to like throw money on this stuff. But I know that sounds like a gambling addict. I'm not trying. But we're going to move on now to our MVP candidates for the Super Bowl. A lot of options here. Mitch, I know you mentioned yours before we were talking about it. So if you want to talk about who you think your favorite is and then an underdog that you have.
Sure. I think it's funny. You said there's a lot of candidates. There is, but like realistically, there's 2 candidates, and everyone else we say we're just kind of hoping they win. I think it's both Brady and Mahomes have almost 50-50, if not better chances to win the Super Bowl MVP. Quarterback wins it over half the time, probably closer to 75% of the time. And it's not like the Peyton Manning Super Bowl when that team was Peyton Manning, full game manager mode, going to pass for 150 yards. These guys are their teams, so they're probably going to win. After that, I kind of have 3 guys I'm looking at. I like Devin White for all the reasons we've talked about him for the last 3 weeks. He kind of is that defense. He's probably going to be guarding Kelsey in pass coverage a couple times, which I think will be an important matchup. And so if he can shut down Kelsey, if Kelsey finishes 15 yards, Devin White should get some MVP votes. I like Chris Jones on the other side of the ball, just because defensive linemen are usually the non-quarterbacks who win it, and he could stop the run and get a couple sacks. But then my deep sleeper, my true dark horse, is Mecole Hardman. He muffed the punt against the Bills, and then he went on to have a couple end arounds, a couple jet sweeps, had a good game. And I think he's plus 10,000 odds or something ridiculous like that. And he returns punts. So if he gets 1 or 2 return punts, he gets a couple end arounds. I think Demarcus Robinson's on the COVID list, so maybe he even catches some passes. I think plus 10,000 is just kind of he's not going to win. Realistically, he's not going to win, but it's good value.
Yeah, I agree with you. Earlier I mentioned about Devin White with Danny. I would have him on there as my underdog, but the only problem is MVP is kind of like the Heisman. Not a lot of defensive players win it. And, I mean, it's a shame. I'm not saying, I'd love to see more defensive players win it to get more recognition. But ultimately it comes down to Brady and Mahomes. I think you touched on it perfectly. 50-50 shot. Like if Chiefs win, Mahomes is getting it. If the Bucs win, Brady's getting it. There's so many players on here. I think there's more chances of underdogs on the Bucs than the Chiefs because you know what you're going to get out of Kelsey and you know what you're going to get out of Hill. Any one of those 2 guys could easily win. If Kelsey has the week that he had last week, he's going to win. He's going to win Super Bowl MVP. He had the most receiving yards or the most receptions out of any player in a conference championship game ever. 13.
That's crazy.
Like as a tight end.
Mm-hmm.
So you could argue for either of those 2. I think if I have to go with an underdog, it'd be on the Bucs. I don't. You mentioned the run game's going to be a key. I don't want. I'm not going to say Fournette or Jones. I think I'm still going to have to go with. I think Chris Godwin could be a big factor. You look at all their weapons. Gronk obviously isn't Gronk of old, but he's still a threat. Cameron Brate, decent threat. Mike Evans, huge threat. Tom Brady's game management, he's going to find his receivers. He's going to put the ball on a dime to them. I think Chris Godwin could have a big game against this Chiefs secondary. And I think he could be – I know that, again, there's so many names here where it's like you say sleeper. Like, how are they a sleeper? But look at both rosters. You can go up and down the roster. A sleeper, like I could say Scotty Miller. That would be a sleeper. But realistically, we know Scotty Miller's not going to win the Super Bowl MVP. No offense to Scotty Miller.
We'll edit this out if he wins.
Yeah. That'll be on freezing cold takes on Twitter. But no, I think Chris Godwin could be, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire plays and gets in, maybe if he just, if we, like you said, we haven't really seen him all year. He's been injured or he's just been on the sidelines. And that he was a first round pick. So I think Chris Godwin would have to be my pick just because of all the weapons on the field on both offensive sides of the ball. Chris Jones, as you mentioned, or Honey Badger could come up with a few big plays in the secondary.
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
So those would be my arguments and my picks for MVP candidates. But now on to the storylines and key players. Key players, we mentioned all of them already in the episode. One storyline here, Mitch, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Danny. One advantage you see and I'll use disadvantage in this instance since you're not an employee of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Unless they want to hire me. I'm sure I'll show up. If I get a ring, I'm there.
Only if you get a ring. One advantage that you see for both teams and one disadvantage you see for both teams.
Yeah, I think the advantage for the Chiefs is that as much as you can get in a Super Bowl, the pressure's kind of off. They won last year. Almost every single player on their rosters got that ring. Andy Reid's got the monkey off his back. No one's really talking about him. It's kind of the choke artist or the guy who messes the clock at the end of big games. They can just go play their game. They're dynasty to watch now as opposed to trying to win a Super Bowl. We're trying to prove we're one of the greatest teams of all time, not the greatest team this NFL season. I think that's kind of an advantage for them. And then an advantage, I'd say, do you want an advantage and disadvantage for each team?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the disadvantage, I'd say, for the Chiefs is that despite them just having won the Super Bowl, they still somehow seem like the less experienced team. They're playing Bruce Arians, veteran coach. I think it's interesting. Reid should on paper have the coaching advantage, but Bruce Arians is a great coach too, so he almost washes that out. But then the team and the Bucs might not be that advantage, but we're talking about Tom Brady here, and you're never going to bet against Tom Brady. And the disadvantage for the Chiefs is they can just never be comfortable in this game because we know Tom Brady can win this game no matter what the score is at any point. And then on the flip side, I think it was kind of interesting, the Bucs, that Danny said a Bucs advantage was them staying at home. And we talk a lot about that and how it's the first home Super Bowl and they're hosting. But I don't know if that's going to factor in too much. I think the advantage for them is that they have Tom Brady at quarterback. And it's kind of what I said the disadvantage for the Chiefs was. But it is the storyline for this team. And I feel like every other year we talk about Tom Brady's washed up. He's getting old. That's just never going to happen. I've accepted that Tom Brady will be dominating until he's 7 years old. And then I'll finish off and then let you go with the disadvantage here for the Bucs. And I think it's that their defense, their pass defense has been really good all year, but they've had a couple stinker games. They've gotten torched a couple times against very good teams. And I think they're good. I like Sean Murphy-Bunting. I like a lot of their defensive backs. But I think Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are going to potentially blow the top off this defense.
I think the Bucs have more advantage. Here's how I look at it. I think the Bucs have more advantages going into this game, but I think the Chiefs have the biggest advantage. The Chiefs' biggest advantage is Pat Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. You can say it over and over and over. You can say it's so cliche, but who has stopped this team? They have one loss this year to the Raiders. They could, if they did not lose to the Raiders, we would be talking about another Miami Dolphins team here as the only teams to go undefeated in a season, capping off a Super Bowl. Think about that. If they didn't have that one hiccup against the Raiders at home back at the beginning of the season or middle of the season, that would be the number one storyline heading into this. It wouldn't be, the defending champs. It would be, the team that could go on pace to be the second undefeated team in NFL history. And the Patriots could have done that years and years ago, but with Randy Moss and Tom Brady. But I think those three, I think Pat Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league now. He's the face of the league now. He just got his $500 million contract. Tyreek Hill, there's a lot of interesting things about Tyreek Hill. People throwing in arguments that he could arguably be the top receiver in the NFL. If you look at statistics, not, obviously he's flashy, he's got that. But when people think of receivers, there's two things that I think they look at. I think they look at a Tyreek Hill style where you just beat everybody down the field. You just run a straight go route and you beat everybody. You blow the safety out of coverage too, in double coverage. Or you look at a receiver like a DeAndre Hopkins or like a Mike Evans that's going to go up and win a 50-50 ball and catches everything. I think you look at it in those two ways. And there are arguments now, if you look at the stats, that Tyreek Hill could arguably be the best receiver in the game. And I think those three are the biggest advantage for the Chiefs. Like you said, I don't think they have the big pressure on. They won their Super Bowl last year. I think if anything, it's more motivation for Pat Mahomes that he's going up against Tom Brady now, the man with the most Super Bowls of all time. So I think the advantage there for the Chiefs is that. I think the disadvantage for the Chiefs, I think it comes into play. I think you said it's not really a factor. Well, actually, I'm gonna use it different. I think the disadvantage is the run game. They haven't really established a run game all season, and you need to run the football. You can't. I mean, I guess if there's one team that can just continually throw the ball and still complete, it's the Chiefs. I think it's that, and I think the Chiefs have not looked good this season. Sure, they have one loss. How many of those wins that they've had all season have been by less than 7 points or 7 points or less? A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
More than you would think for a team how good they are.
They are not blowing teams out of the water like they did last year. And I think that consistency shows. And I think that could end up being a disadvantage going up against Tom Brady. If we're going to the Bucs side of the ball, advantage, I think you touched on it about Tom Brady, but I'm going to pick a different one. I'm going to say the defense. Their defense is clearly better than the Chiefs. You look at Devin White, you look at Levante David, Sean Murphy-Bunting, as Danny mentioned, picks in 3 consecutive games. He's turning it on. Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul. That defense is all over the place. And there's just so many names you can go up and down the list. Their linebacking core with David and White, absolutely unbelievable. They have the clear advantage on defense. It's just they're going up against arguably the best offense ever. And I think the disadvantage for the Bucs, that's a tough one.
It's hard because these teams just aren't really flawed. Their disadvantages are just that the other team is also really good.
Yeah, like I could say a disadvantage is they're going up against Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
But I think it could be an advantage and a disadvantage. As you said, you don't think it's going to be a factor, is having the game at home. I think that could end up being a disadvantage. You get too relaxed. You get too comfortable. You get too unfocused. I don't want to say unfocused, but you think we have all the advantages in the world at this point, as far as not having to travel, sleeping in our own beds, getting our same locker rooms, getting to come out of the same tunnel, playing in our same stadium, making the same drives to the stadium that we do all the time when we have home games. The routine is there. I think that could end up being a little too comfortable. The Chiefs are sitting at home, okay, as Danny said, until the week before, or until the day before. But I think that ultimately that could come down, as a disadvantage for the Bucs, if you look at it that way. But those are my disadvantages and advantages for both teams. And we'll close up here and end with game predictions, which I was going to mention earlier. But do you want to go first with your game prediction, and then I'll close?
Sure. I've been saying it the whole season. The second Ronnie Stanley went down for the Ravens, I kind of started embracing that, hey, this season didn't really matter. It was inevitable. The Chiefs were going to win the whole time. I am now, funnily enough, less sure about them winning than I have been for basically the rest of the season, despite them now actually being in the Super Bowl. But I will still pick the Chiefs. I think they will win 32-20. 32-21. I'll give them that extra point. 32-21 will be my predicted score. I think that's a fun game. I think it'd be close. I could see them getting up 20, and then Brady making it a little bit closer, and then them putting it away with a late touchdown or something like that. I think I want it to be a fun game. I'm really mostly cheering for the storylines, cheering for the game. I don't have too much. It's funny. Tom Brady can leave the Patriots, and now I hate Tom Brady a little bit less. I'm a little more okay with him winning. So, but I'll still take the Chiefs.
Yeah, what I was going to mention earlier, it was you can bet on winning margins, and I know I mentioned earlier I'm a big over guy, and when I'm about to say my final score prediction is an under prediction, but that doesn't mean you can't do an alternate, total, So I was going to do winning margin. I was going to do Chiefs by 6 to 10 points, plus 460 are the odds for that. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think that like I mentioned just now, the Chiefs have not looked so flashy like they did last year all year. And I think it's a close game. The Bucs defense is too good. I know that, but I think in the end, the Chiefs make that extra offensive play, and I think it's a big play. Whether it's a bomb to Tyreek, whether it's, a big Travis Kelce reception, whether it's on the defensive side of the ball, and they get a big fumble recovery or pick six, or even a punt return for a touchdown. I think that's the X factor overall. As you said, going up against Tom Brady, he's been here too many times. And I just think the game's going to be way too close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I'm going to say Chiefs by 6 to 10. My final score prediction, 27-20, Kansas City over Tampa Bay. That's what I'm going with. 47 points. I think it's going to be that close of a game. I think it's going to be a good Super Bowl. Let's hope it's not another Rams-Patriots Super Bowl. I think it's going to be good, but I think the Chiefs, in the end, come out and win their second consecutive Super Bowl, and Pat Mahomes continues on his legacy to becoming one of the greats of all time, even though he's only been in the league for a few years.
Agreed. I think I'll just end with this. If Roger Goodell and the NFL were allowed to choose a Super Bowl they could pick at the end of the year, I feel like it would have to have been this. Brady versus Mahomes, Buccaneers at home versus the defending champs. It's the perfect Super Bowl almost.
Yeah, and touching on the Bucs too, I'll be the first to admit I didn't have a lot of faith in them. When the playoffs started, they finished the season 11-5. They didn't win their own division. Looking at this team on paper, it's like, wow. Like, on paper, you have Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette, all four guys they just brought in this season. And their defense, we already knew what we were getting with their defense. You're looking at like, wow, like this team should win the division, even over the Saints. And they get beat both times in the regular season by New Orleans. And now you're looking and you're questioning, like, okay, is this team really just like, were they just like flashy on paper? So they get into the playoffs. They go to Washington, face the worst playoff team in the NFC. Closer game than you would have liked to see, but they still got the W. Go down to New Orleans, to the Big Easy, win in New Orleans, and beat Drew Brees and arguably what could be his last game of his career. And then they go up to Lambeau Field, which I thought was the biggest climb. I thought, okay, Aaron Rodgers' revenge game from earlier in the season down in Tampa Bay. They get the Bucs, everybody on that roster but Tom Brady, not used to playing January football at Lambeau Field. They're used to, I'm sorry, not making the playoffs for the players that have been on that team for a decent amount of time now, or just playing in sunny, Florida. So I'm like, oh, frozen tundra, Aaron Rodgers getting his first, conference championship game at home at Lambeau, snow on the ground, revenge game, fans at Lambeau. As Danny mentioned, all the sights and sounds, there were only 9,000 fans, but he said it felt like 25,000. I thought, okay, this is an easy lock. Packers win. Bucs upset them. So I think I've learned to not doubt this team, especially with Tom Brady at the helm, as much as I've always wanted to doubt Tom Brady. Postseason Tom Brady's a different breed. But I think Chiefs get it done 27-20. Super Bowl 55 on Sunday, 6 or 6:30. I feel so
6:30,
terrible
I think.
not knowing the exact time.
Never starts on time, no.
Yeah, it really never starts on time in general. One last thing I want to ask before we close and before we leave. Company that you are looking forward to the most seeing a commercial from? Super Bowl commercials are always the big – Super Bowl commercials are the reason why, like 40% of people watch the Super Bowl.
So I know it's interesting. I heard Budweiser's not doing their normal Clydesdale commercial for the first time ever. So I would say that the one I'm looking forward most to, I don't know. I feel like I don't even know the name of it, but the pistachio company always does like super weird commercials. And I'm curious, I'm more generally curious what everyone does in like a COVID advertisement. I feel like there's going to be a lot of people kind of giving their time to like first responders and stuff like that. But I'm curious to see who gets the most creative with their commercials. And I feel like a weird company like that could do it.
I think, there's always something from Doritos. You got to look out for the Doritos commercials. And I think, two dark horses that are big name companies or big name like brands too, Pepsi and Skittles, I think could also throw some good stuff in there. They have in the past. But Doritos is an easy top pick. You can always expect something funny and clever from Doritos. So you heard it here first there from the commercials from Mitch and I. But that wraps up this segment, this Super Bowl special that we had for you here today, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Again, big thanks to Danny Beeck for joining us on the show during his busy Super Bowl week, finding some time for us. And good luck to his Bucs, and good luck to the Chiefs as well. Should be a good Super Bowl 55 from possibly rainy Tampa Bay, Florida, as he mentioned, some rain possibly in the forecast. Let's hope it's just all sunshine and rainbows for the Super Bowl. But we'll see what happens. If you want to bet some money, take Mitch and I's advice on our locks and the bets. Big Gatorade guy, Orange, hammer that. But hope it's an enjoyable Super Bowl for you guys. We'll be back here next week on the Sin Bin for another edition. We'll get back to, we'll have our Super Bowl reactions, but we'll get to some other sports and stuff as well. But hope you guys enjoyed the Super Bowl special. Thanks for tuning into the Sin Bin as always, and we will see you guys next week.